Thank you, Valentina, for your good talk. Really enjoyed that. I believe that from my side, the talk will be mostly about how the hackers and the fraudsters can basically exploit different systems and the websites currently, what we see from the group IB perspective, from, let's say, the cybercrime fighters perspective. So you see the one side of the table, let's say, sitting from the cybersecurity specialists, understanding how the exploits work, also understanding how they can be used. We sit on the other side. So I personally started as the blue team specialist, so working in the DevSecOps, basically finding the ways how to secure our systems. And the Group IB in general is basically cybercrime fighter club, let's say. So we produce different services, products, like to find the bad guys, put them behind the bars, ideally, if they went too far. And my talk will be mostly about some of the new recent attack that we saw, but also at the same time to be precautious, let's say so. I will try to start with the story. And the beginning of the story started with a hack. We didn't hack anyone, so let me explain. Basically, our first initial findings from our CTI analyst, now I see what she meant about this. Okay, so our first story started with the investigation of the threat actor group called Scream Jungle. In October 24, our CTI analyst identified a bunch of vulnerable websites that were hacked and that had a side-loaded JavaScript that was basically present there. So by this, let's say, tactics or technique that this group has used, we see that they are compromising the vulnerable Magenta websites and also injecting the fingerprint. But why did they do that? So we see that at first they sideload the JavaScript that usually is under the Google Finger Analytics, so to be more or less white labeled, or let's say white listed, so that it looks legitimate. But at the same time, this is the part of the script that will redirect you to the Bubblesoft website, that will make your browser to download the JavaScript and then send some data outside. What sort of the data? The interesting part is that the site-loaded JavaScript will lead you to the client save.js, so which its name basically is not suspicious at all, right? So we are protecting our customers, but it is actually a side-loaded JavaScript from one of the vendors that provides tools for fraudsters, and this is the part of the fingerprint switcher module from one of the software packages that is used. Basically, this JavaScript collects all the information related to your browser. It at first checks whether you use mobile application or the browser from the desktop. And if so, it will basically collect all the information related to your window properties, to all of the let's say fingerprints, WebGL, Canvas, user agents, and so on. But why do they need that? The interesting part was that it's all a part of the bigger scheme. So after your data is being sent to the custom server created by those hackers, by the, let's say, fraud software developers, what they do is that they store this information for then later reuse it in an attack. But how this information can be reused? So all of those sites from our first initial research basically were compromised, and monthly affected users are around like 130,000 each month, basically, that basically share their fingerprints with the fraudulent infrastructure. The case is that this information later then can be used on the, as you can see, the retail sites or pharmaceuticals, so the e-commerce shops. And mainly, this is used within the software package of the Bubblesoft. The Bubblesoft is the piece of software that is, let's say, related to the anti-detect browser family. And what is an anti-detect browser? I believe that some of you may know what is this. And those are the tools that the fraudsters are using to basically create those multiple browsers versions from one device for multi-accounting, for farming, let's say, on the e-commerce, or to substitute their device information so that you cannot fingerprint their device properly, so that you will see the legitimate device appearing. The case is that when you have this unique fingerprint for every transaction that you do or every account that you get, you will have, let's say, unique and absolutely indisguisable, let's say, device for the customers, and so for the companies basically. And the companies will look if the same card has used the same device, if there was a device change. Many of the anti-fraud vendors or payment providers are also checking your device to make sure that you're not compromised, that your device is using the same set of cards, let's say, and that there is no other account takeovers attacks. And we see that those anti-detect browsers, basically they allow the process to create those profiles, to substitute their information, to create the proxy lists that they can use. And so all of this basically enables and weaponizes them in order to abuse the websites, abuse the banking pages, for instance, or iGaming portals. And this is widely known for the fraudulent community. Across Adriatic region, we see that there is more than 10% of all the high-risk related sessions to multi-accounting are using some sort of the device fingerprint spoofing or the use of the network anonymization at the same time. So for the first half of this year, basically 10% of all the multi-account were created with the use of such tools. And the interesting part is that you need to be sure and you need to know that, some of you know maybe, that basically websites are scanning your device to make sure that you're secure, that their customers are secure. And the fraudsters know that, so they abuse it in their own way. And today I'm gonna basically show you how they industrialize this fingerprint spoofing, hijacking, and then reusing it. And so we see on the dark web many discussions about the topic how to, so this is the example from the Carter shops. It's not an advertisement, so it's just like highlighting how the hackers are thinking or fraudsters are thinking to abuse this or that tool. And they are providing the list of recommendations what you need to do. At the end of those, you can see the mention of how to card safely outside your region, get the right tool purposely for that. So it's Link and Sphere, Octo, Multi-Login, and other. And so basically they are highlighting that you need to be careful about the fingerprints. And we see that in the fraudulent community, those tools are even widely known, widely advertised, are still used by them, and are basically the way to go for the fraudsters. And we see how this later on transforms into evolution of such tools. So in 2016, there was a first message found about the Bablosoft developer that basically created some automation tool based on this browser, and he was advertising it in some dark web forum where he explained that, this program operates like macro, you can automate the actions, you can then basically load some site, put in some data, and then use it like on a scale. Later on, we saw the other module added, so related to the fingerprint switcher, so that you can basically substitute your device information during this automated attack to look more legitimate for the website owner. And then it all starts. So the fraud awakens, and we see how the fraudsters have started to use these automation tools, and they recommend them to their fraud gang, let's say, to use the anti-detect browsers, like to check the banking account details, or even write the additional scripts for the browser automation studios. And we see the economy of this activity, so that you can basically write a code, you can, let's say, tailor it to the specific site, and then they sell them scripts basically with the automation, with a perfect canvas that will be then providing you the custom fingerprints. So all of this is the part of the bigger scheme, and we see that after gathering the compromised accounts via the combo lists or via buying them directly from the fraudster, they are using the VPN hosters, they're using the device fingerprint spoofing and the anti-detect browser tools to then abuse the compromised credit cards to basically cash out it. Later on, they can either obtain the fulls, so it's like full ID of the compromised victim, or resell it then later when they already achieved their goal. And so this sort of the browser automation studio allows the fraudsters to basically start, it became an EDE for the fraudsters as well. So you can use like any sort of the browser automation, you can then decide which sort of the network you will be using, what sort of the steps your browser should go through. And this became, let's say, a game changer for fraudsters because they can then automate at scale their operations and then combine, let's say, or merge, fuse their activity related to the compromised credentials collection, and then the automation of this activity as well. So later on, the fraudsters can basically build up the steps, how to do that, so that create or collect the fingerprint from the database that you basically collected from the compromised websites. Then you have the database with the compromised credentials, the combo lists, or the ones that the fraudster bought. Then opening the website, looking for the specific element within it, and then basically updating or clicking on the login pages and so on. And so all of this has become a problem, especially a problem within the Adriatic region as well. So we see how those modules are being basically sold, advertised, accessed. And then we see as well the use of such tools in a real life. So right now we see that on the e-commerce shops, more than 60% of the traffic is basically related to the automation tools. It will be even harder with all the AI developments, so that you have the agentic AI helping you to buy the goods, let's say, to put your credit card in. And also we have a good research about the card testing scenarios using that. But right now, this sort of the credential stuffing attacks using the automation tools like this is something to be careful about. And for the individuals and for the researchers, it really makes sense to see how the fraudsters are operating, and also be aware that any fingerprinting solutions on this sort of sites might be also subject for investigation, because it's just one group, one threat actor that is using this. But with the next whole evolution, basically, of this activity, we can see that it spreads out in different regions as well. And so, for the recommendations for the cybersecurity and anti-fraud professionals, I would recommend to, at first, update Magenta, so you don't use like any outdated software. You can detect those fraudulent techniques. So we see that anti-detect browsers use specific tools or methods, let's say, to substitute their fingerprint. You can look into those signs, but also all of those browsers are using the automation tools such as Selenium, Puppeteer, and others that are used for the Q&A activity, but are weaponized by the fraudsters directly. Proactive fraud intelligence, so having the access to, let's say, the breaking down of those actors' activities can help you understanding the fraud and threat landscape more easily and more clearly, let's say. And of course, MFA for everyone, so any biometrics or secure enclave-proofed solutions to support customer transaction or logins would basically save your customers, for instance, or customers of your companies from this sort of the attacks. And of course, yeah, update, and update again. So I hope that was interesting. If you would have any questions, feel free to reach out and to come. And that would be the end of my talk. You don't want to spend your time on. Thank you.